You are going to receive about 50,000 emails this year. Now that number is a little bit above average, but if you're watching this, you are above average. How many emails do you have sitting in your inbox right now that you haven't done anything about? Hi, I'm Coulter Reed. I'm here to help you get the day-to-day out of the way so that you can stop chasing the dream and start living the dream. This is After Work, a place where we can talk about how to make that happen. This year, we are going to send and receive approximately 333 billion emails. That's a lot. Studies have shown that when we check email, especially when we check work email, two things happen. Our heart rate goes up and our blood pressure goes up. We start stressing over what's in our inbox when we check our email. Okay? We know that these are demands on our time. Someone is asking us to do something, we're getting feedback on something, probably negative because we tend to focus on the negative more than the positive. If nothing else, it's a decision that we have to make what to do about that email. It's no wonder that we're getting burned out on email. About 15 years ago, the Boston Consulting Group did an interesting study. They started doing some experiments with how their employees did work, because their employees were typical professional services employees. If you're in a professional service, a consultant, lawyer, accounting, tax professional, IT professional, it's easy to put in 50, 60, 70 hours a week in the office. On top of that, many professionals spend another 25 to 30 hours every week engaging with email from home. This is stuff that's off the clock. It's unofficial. So what the Boston Consulting Group did was they said, okay, for this job, we're going to have our consultants only work 4 days a week. They staffed up by 20%, so the job was still fully staffed 5 days a week. And they said on this job, we're going to have people go home at night and not check email. They're not going to be responding to email and phone calls at all hours. And a funny thing happened. The clients said, hey, that sounds great. Go ahead, go right ahead. Sounds wonderful. The employees pushed back on it. They were afraid of what was going to happen. Because when they compared themselves to their peers and what kind of the industry standard was, where they're putting in these crazy 90-hour weeks, they didn't want to seem like they were slacking off. They wanted to appear to be just as dedicated and devoted and hardworking as everybody else. And so they didn't like this idea of only putting in 4 days in the office. They didn't want to go home and disengage from work. They were afraid that they were going to fall behind. But funny thing happened. The clients didn't care. The clients were more satisfied with the job that they did because the consultants that they were working with weren't getting burned out. They were staying engaged. They were keeping their energy high. And so the clients had a better experience. These employees were able to do better work by disengaging from work. And a lot of that was just how they handled email. These same studies showed that some unbelievable number of work emails. I forget the number of emails, what the percentage is, but it's like 80 or 90% of work emails are opened and checked within 6 seconds of them being delivered. Now, that is a constant interruption that's keeping you from getting work done, and it's also keeping you from living your life. Now, maybe your job is answering email. So we're going to talk about some strategies that you can use to disengage from email, get out of your inbox so that you can do other things. If your job is email, then just kind of invert this. All these things that we're going to talk about, don't do it. Well, do these. Okay, just invert. You know your job. Just flip the script and do what works for you. How do you spend less time on email? Okay, the first tip. This is going to be blindingly obvious. Check it less often. Most people at work check their email up to 36 times a day. If you do the math, that's like every 10 or 12 minutes. Okay? If you're constantly checking your email, no, you're not getting anything else done. So the first thing that you can do is decide when you are going to check email. Check it on a schedule. If you need to check it every hour to be responsive, okay, great. That's a starting point. Pull back to that, see how it goes. But I'll bet you that you can take it a step further. Pull back and check email 3 times a day. Check it second thing in the morning, check it after lunch, and then check it before you go home in the evenings. The people that you're interacting with over email, they're doing other things too. They're not sitting there at their desk expecting you to reply right away. If they need that sort of responsiveness, there are other ways that they can get that. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. When you're working on email, take your email client offline. Now, a lot of email clients have this functionality built in. You can just go up to a menu and tell it to go offline, and it's going to stop checking automatically, or even receiving push notifications while you're working. And so that means that while you've got email open, while you're in there taking care of what's already come in, no more messages are going to show up while you're in there working. It's like waiting until the snow has stopped before you go outside to shovel the sidewalk. Now, I have shoveled the walks while it's still snowing, and it's kind of frustrating. You do the driveway, you get to the end of the walk, you turn around, and all of your hard work is undone. You've got to go over it again and do it again. And so when you check email, if you stay connected, it's a lot like trying to shovel the walks while it's still snowing. So go offline. Read through your messages. Archive them, delete them, reply. And your mail client will queue them up. They'll queue up the changes, ready to go the next time you connect. When you're done, tell it to go ahead and send and receive all, and then close email before you do anything about the emails that just came in. If your mail client doesn't support this natively, then you can still take your laptop offline, just disconnect from Wi-Fi, unplug the Ethernet, and you'll get basically the same thing. It knows that it's gone offline at that point. But most email clients have this functionality built in. Create for yourself email-free zones. Even if your job is email, if you're in IT, you handle things, you do things over email. If you're an admin, if you're a customer service, and you're doing a lot of things over email, that's great. There's still probably things that you need to do that are not email. You can do kind of the opposite. Instead of creating specific points in your schedule where you are going to check email, carve out some time in your schedule where you're specifically not going to do email, where you're going to get out of your inbox and go do something else. Okay? It's the same principle. It's keeping email to be contained. Set boundaries on it so that you can start to deal with it on your own terms. The second tip, or maybe we're up to 3 now, is to turn off the notifications. First off, if you're not checking email, don't leave your email app open and running. Okay? You're just asking to get drawn into it on its terms when somebody sends you a new message. If you're not working on email, quit your email client. Even if you do have it open because maybe you need to be able to pop in and send off an email real quick, okay, fine. But even when the notifications come in and pop up in the corner, that's still a distraction. It draws your attention. You see the movement, you look over, and what was that? Oh, okay, now it's going to take you a few seconds to regain your focus and get back onto what you're doing. Turn off the notifications. Turn off the notifications on your phone and on the desktop. Turn off the sounds. Don't have the banners pop up. Now, if you're waiting for a message from somebody important, some email clients, like Mail on iOS, have the ability to flag certain people as a VIP sender. When an email from them comes in, it will raise a flag, it'll pop up an alert, but not do it for everybody. That's a way that you can stay on top of important emails that you're waiting for, but not receive a notification that destroys your attention and focus on every single message that comes in. Do not disturb is your friend. Okay, if you're doing something where you don't want to be interrupted, turn on Do Not Disturb. You can still use your phone, use your computer, and instead of notifying you every time a message comes in, they'll be saved. They'll be held back until you take the opportunity to check and see what's there. Use rules to triage your inbox before you're paying attention to it. Most email clients have the ability to pre-sort your mail according to rules that you set up. I use a service called SaneBox. There's a link in the show notes. And what SaneBox does is it lets you set up server-side rules. As you receive messages, they're automatically routed into a couple different folders. There's some messages that stay in the inbox, but then there's 2 or 3 other folders that I use that it routes them off to, and those are emails that I can read later. Studies that SaneBox has done have shown that 62% of the email that we receive can be handled in bulk. We don't need to respond to every single one or give it our attention as it comes in. The less important stuff can be set aside, wait for later, and the important things can get our attention right away when we do take time to sit down and check our email on a schedule, whether that's once an hour or 2 or 3 times a day. By using the rules or filters built into your email client, you can make the time that you're spending checking email more effective and productive. Check the high value stuff more frequently, and then only check the bulk stuff once a day, once a week. You'll get a feel for how long you can defer that before you need to do it. And the interesting thing that you'll find is that a lot of the stuff, once you start paying less attention to it, it will go off into the background. You'll realize that you don't ever really need to get back to it. If it's a mailing list, then consider unsubscribing from it. Just reduce the amount of email that's coming in the first place. As you're setting up these rules, one tip, pay more attention to messages where you are in the to field than where you're in the CC field. If you're in the to field, there's an action that you need to take as a result of that email. If you're in the CC field, then it's for your information only. And if you're not in either of those, you're probably on a list. And then depending on what that list is, you may or may not need to check it anytime soon. I have things set up at work so that if the default answer for an incoming email is it goes into a secondary folder that I check less frequently. An incoming message only gets to stay in my inbox if it is addressed to me, or if I'm CC'd, or if it's one of like a dozen different lists that I'm on that have a sufficient signal-to-noise ratio that I go ahead and let them stay in the inbox. But the vast majority of the email that I receive, which is hundreds of messages a day, they get routed off into this other folder, and I only go check for things in that folder if somebody mentions an email that I missed and I need to go check. Other than that, out of sight, out of mind, and I don't need to waste time on it. One of the advantages of using server-side rules, if you can configure those on your server or using a service like SaneBox, is that you have the same view on all of your devices. If you're using client-side rules that you set up, like in the macOS Mail application, those are processed locally on your Mac. When your Mac checks email, it will see the incoming messages, it will route them, file them, delete them as appropriate, and then that will sync back up to the server. But it's only going to happen while your Mac is running. And it's only going to happen when your Mac checks for messages. So if you pull up your email from another device, you might not see those rules apply yet. If you apply them on the server side, it's already taken care of. Tip 5, use the one-touch rule. Don't open your email to check it just because you're bored. Don't go into your email unless you're going to do something about it. When you open a message, decide what you're going to do about it. We receive about 120 emails per day, give or take. Now, like I said, that's a little bit above average, but if you're watching this, you are above average, and you probably get that many at least. I know I get a lot more than that. Only 25% of those, on average, are actually handled and responded to in a day. So that's 90 messages that have come into the inbox that you haven't done anything about. No wonder that you're going to accumulate a backlog. So you need to have a plan in place for how you're going to work through that backlog and keep it from accumulating. So the one-touch rule means that when you open it up, decide what it is and turn it into what it is. If it's just something that you need to know, that you were informed of it, great. Delete it or archive it if you need to refer to it later. Should you delete it or archive it? Well, what are the odds that you're going to need to refer back to it again? If you're not sure, archive it. You probably have plenty of space in your email account. If it's not that important, then delete it. Anything that is truly important, you can ask the person for the information again. So don't be afraid of deleting emails either. You can always get the information back. An email that you open up, there's a few possibilities for what it is. It might be just something informational that you need to know. It might be information that you need to be able to refer back to. It might be something that you need to do, and it might be someplace that you need to be, a meeting. So how do you turn it into what it is? If it's short-term information, yeah, read it, archive it, delete it. If it's long-term information, archive it maybe, but email, depending on the type of information it is, email might not be the best place to go back and look it up again. Have a filing system. Why not copy the information you need out of your email and put it into Evernote, Notes, a text file? Whatever your system is for storing project reference information, copy the information you need out of the email and integrate it with the rest of your system so you don't have to keep going back to your email all the time. That's one of the hidden reasons why people leave their email open all the time and get distracted and sucked into it. They leave it open so they can refer back to it to look things up, and then they get stuck. They get distracted from what they're trying to do by new messages that are coming in. This is especially obvious when you're using your email as a task list. And email is a terrible task list to work from because you have given hundreds of people, thousands of people, the ability to put things onto your task list just by sending you an email. Have a better way of storing tasks than working out of email. If you need to do something about an email that's come in, if you can do it in less than 2 minutes, then by all means, use the 2-minute rule. Take action and get rid of the email. Do it and done. If it's going to take you more than 2 minutes, then create a task in your task management app or write it down in your planner. Copy the information that you need from the email to your planner and then delete or archive the email. Now, some email clients, like Spark and Airmail, I've used both of those. I love them both. They're fantastic apps. They let you copy a link to a particular email message. And that is very handy for integrating email with other parts of your system. If you do need to refer back to an email, then you can get back to it very quickly and very easily. Both of these apps also have a nice feature where they integrate with other applications. And so if you use OmniFocus, both of these have an integration where you can, if there's the key piece of information that you need to complete the task, just select it with a few mouse clicks. You can create a task with that information already populated, and you're on your way. Archive or delete the message, and there you go. Now you'll notice that I'm just saying archive or delete, not file. Okay. I'm not a fan of creating large taxonomical folder structures where you file messages away. We tend to create like one of these folders every 5 days or so, I think studies have shown. And we have 36-ish that at any one time that we're actually using. And it takes too much time to file them. And filing has limitations because sometimes you need to file it in multiple places and it's just awkward. So instead of filing, just archive it and then you can search for it later. You can set up smart folders in some clients, which are basically just a saved search. So instead of having to type in what you're searching for, you can just click on the smart folder in the sidebar, and just like you're browsing a folder, it will search for all of the messages which match that criteria. But instead of having to take the time to decide where to file it and then take the time to file it, you just archive it and it'll show up there automatically. So it's a lot faster. When it comes time to send an email or to reply to an email, one of the best things you can do to make that quick is to create templates for the responses. How many times have you put off replying to an email or writing an email because you dread having to think of the right thing to say? It's hard. You don't want to offend people, and email, you don't have that tone that you have when you're talking face to face with someone. You don't want to come across wrong, and so you're worried about how you're going to come across, and so you just wait. You delay, you put it off. Well, most email clients have a signature function where you can, and this is it's kind of a hack. It's not how they mean for you to use this, but you can use the signature to store some pre-canned email. If you have an email that you typically send, just pull up that signature and you can send it right away. I use Text Expander for this. There are a couple of emails that I send fairly frequently, and I took the time, I sat down once and wrote a good email that I was happy with. Oftentimes it was taking an existing email that I had already sent and said, ooh, that was a good one. And so I went back and looked at that email up and oh, here we go. Now I can use this one. I can use the same email again to answer this person. And once I do that 2 or 3 times, I start thinking, okay, I need to make this more available if I'm going to be doing this on a regular basis. One of the early ones that I did was a response to recruiters that have cold contacted me on LinkedIn. With just a couple of keystrokes, I could fill in a couple of fields like their name, pick a couple of customizations, and hit reply. It takes me 5 seconds. They get back this well-thought, courteous response, and it hasn't taken any of my time at all. That email isn't sitting around in my inbox waiting for me to do something about it. They've gotten an answer. They've gotten a reply, so that they're not waiting to hear from you. Because I've noticed that if I don't reply to these recruiters, then they email me again after a day or two, and a third time a few days later. If I reply right away to the first email, then that 5 seconds just prevented 2 other emails from coming in. Emails that never happened, and so I never have to process them. The last tip that I want to share is there are other tools besides email. Email is ubiquitous. We all have it. We all use it. But there are other ways that you can communicate. Email has its strengths and its weaknesses. It does a job, and it does that job well, but there are other jobs that it's not so good at. One of the things that email is good at is creating a record. You have a history of the transaction, what you sent, what they said. You've got that email. You have that digital paper trail. And one of the downsides is that email creates a digital paper trail. Sometimes you don't want that for any of various reasons, perfectly valid reasons, but that is one of the downsides. Email is asynchronous by nature. It's not good for having conversations. Okay? If you do need a quick answer from somebody, then email might not be the best medium to use. Send them a text. Send them a message on Slack. Pick up the phone and call them. Talk to them. Walk over to their office and talk to them face to face. You can save a lot of time by just switching to a different tool. A lot of the times we think that an email has to have several paragraphs in order to be polite, if nothing else. We might have just a 3-word answer to their email, but we feel deep down that if we reply with a 3-word email, we might offend them. And we don't want to do that. And so we multiply our words. We start saying a lot more than we actually need to. It wastes our time coming up with it. It wastes their time reading it. But a 3-word answer to a text message? No, that's perfectly normal. Nobody has a problem with that. I once had someone from my management chain come down and follow up on an email that was less than 5 minutes old because I hadn't replied. Now, as soon as the words were out of his mouth, he realized that, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Why would you have replied that quickly? But it shows the point that coming down to talk to me, he was able to get an answer much more quickly than if he just relied on email. I got my first email address when I think when I went off to college. It was through the university. That was the first email account that I got. And I'm pretty sure that was the first that my parents got an email address. Their oldest son was off at college now. And they knew that this email thing on that internet that we hadn't figured out is supposed to have a capital I, this was going to let them keep in touch with me more easily. My kids, now, they already have email accounts through school. And I'm so sorry. I wish they didn't have to deal with that this young. On the other hand, maybe this means that they're going to develop good habits around email a lot younger than I did. So on one hand, I'm sorry. On the other hand, I'm hopeful for them. Email is a part of life. It's how we communicate. There are people who expect to be able to reach you over email. There are people you expect to be able to reach over email. Companies use it to stay in touch. It's not going anywhere. There are other tools, but email is kind of the standard for keeping in touch. If you know somebody who is overwhelmed by their email, send a link to this video. And if you send them a link by email, they'll understand. They won't be offended by that. I am called to read. I'm here to help you get the day-to-day out of the way so that you can stop chasing the dream and start living the dream. And I'll see you in the next video.